Mercedes established once again in 2022 that it was one of the most dependable teams on the grid. But has that strategy cost them performance versus rivals? Mercedes had one of the most difficult campaigns, dealing with numerous issues with the W13. But when it came to power unit reliability, the team was among the best in the field. Before we get started, remember that out of the 22 races this season, both George Russell and Lewis Hamilton only failed to complete one. Hamilton in Abu Dhabi due to a hydraulic issue, and Russell in Silverstone due to leaving his vehicle following the major first-lap accident with Zhou Guanyu. Want to know all about Mercedes' 2023 season? Want to know what Ferrari stole from Red Bull? Watch until the end, and I guarantee you won't finish the video disappointed. Mercedes has maintained dependability via years of refining since the beginning of the hybrid era, but has this policy come at the expense of rivals' performance? To save money, an engine freeze has been in place since the beginning of 2022, with relatively few components that may be replaced until 2026. During this time, F1 power units can only be modified to increase dependability. Alpine has struggled with dependability throughout the hybrid era, with Fernando Alonso suffering his fair share this year, which he feels lost him 60 points. The team has acknowledged prioritizing dependability above performance, as Executive Director Bruno Femin previously said was the objective at Alpine to remain competitive. We made changes to the engine very shortly before the new season. We took risks, but the strategy was clear. We had to get back into contention with the engine, he said. With the engine freeze, our strategy was to do something with our performance. We still have the possibility to solve reliability issues, and that strategy was good even though we had some problems, but the engine itself had no major issues. P4 in constructors for Mercedes demonstrates that performance outperforms dependability. Despite several retirements during the season, Alpine managed to beat McLaren as the best of the rest team to 4th place in the Constructors' Championship. Since their middling disappointment in 2020, Ferrari has made considerable strides in engine performance, while Honda has moved on from its early days with McLaren by delivering 2 World Championships with Red Bull. Mercedes had consistently been at the front and the benchmark for dependability. But in 2022, they were hindered by the W13's aerodynamic drag and porpoising at high-speed corners. The power unit remained among the quickest, as proven by Alex Albon's 10th place performance on the Belgian Grand Prix. The Ray Dillon speed traps recorded this vehicle reaching 314.4 km per hour. While there's still dispute over how the rule change to ride heights would affect them, Mercedes still has the upper hand in remaining in the top 3 following the rival towards the end of 2022. Could a new rule change catch Mercedes off guard in 2023 after they had a late surge at the conclusion of the 2022 season? Mercedes experienced a late surge at the conclusion of the 2022 season after starting 2022 in one of their lowest positions since dominating F1 at the start of the hybrid era. This is partly because they were able to resolve the flaws that plagued the W13 throughout the season. But a rule change coming next year may have an even greater impact. The FIA extended the outside floor edges by 15 mm, with no more than 5 mm vertical deflection when a 250 N load is applied downward, and no more than a 5 mm vertical deflection when a 250 N load is applied upward. The goal is to limit the team's ability to run the edge of the floor closer to the track's surface, resulting in improved aero performance. The FIA initially proposed a 25 mm increase, but after opposition from the teams, they reduced it to 15 mm. According to Sky Sports F1 commentator Karen Chanduk, this adjustment might be detrimental to Mercedes, who've never run a high ride height in their cars in the past. There's a regulation change next year which is small but not insignificant in terms of the ride heights. The cars have all got to run at a higher ride height, he said at the end of the review. Which is the one team historically that hasn't run at a high ride height? The brainpower that won all those world championships is still there in Brackley and Brixworth, but I don't think it's as easy to fix as you might think. Despite only winning one race during the 2022 season, the Brazilian Grand Prix, the team finished in the top 3 in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari has constructed a decent enough package to finish ahead of the team in most courses, and it will only get better as they launch a new engine with an extra 30 bhp. In comparison to the F175, the Ferrari of 2023 will not be a visual revolution. This is not to say that the aerodynamic idea will be a carbon copy of its predecessor, just the contrary. Given that the key advances capable of boosting the car's competitiveness will be on the floor, not least due to regulation changes, the next single-seater from Maranello will also have distinguishing aspects in the visible portions. The side pods will have the same carved design at the top portion, with massive grills for heat dissipation, and will narrow dramatically towards the rear. In reality, compared to the F175, the region usually referred to as the Coke bottle in the front of the rear wheels will be somewhat further forward in favor of a less sophisticated airflow management oriented towards the rear. In actuality, the bodywork that extended behind the engine cover on the F175 and narrowed into a semicircular portion of changeable diameter depending on ambient temperatures should be replaced by horizontal vents that run all the way over the rear suspension elements. This is a layout inspired in part by the Red Bull RB18, which was compelled to disperse heat through the rear vent and grills of different width on the sides of the cockpit and at the base of the engine cover due to its sloping sides. In essence, the 675, as the internal design code indicates, will have different volumes than the F175 in order to reduce drag. The lower profile of the sides is one improvement that, according to our understanding, should further distinguish the new single-seater. The transition from the vertical part to the floor side should be considerably more noticeable. Essentially, a channel would be developed that adheres to the double floor theory, as expertly portrayed on the world champion RB18. It would be a logical extension of the previous proposal in certain ways, as it would not entirely disturb the internal packing of the cooling system, but would coincide with a new location of the deformable structures on the cockpit sidewalls. The chassis in reality will be vastly different from its predecessor in its lower part on the sides of the cockpit and in the fuel tank region, retaining a perfect correspondence only in the engine pickup places, according to rumors. The effort in developing the position of internal mechanics then included a whole gearbox redesign to allow the usage of the diffuser, which is distinguished by a 10mm elevation of its junction with regard to the Venturi channels. The suspensions have stayed intact, however the rear one would have a new position of the pieces inside the gearbox to allow for a revised floor design in this region. Aston Martin has a lengthy technical relationship with Mercedes, but technical head Dan Fallows feels the team is open-minded about producing additional parts in-house. According to technical director Dan Fallows, the Aston Martin Formula One team is open to lowering its technical cooperation with Mercedes. In 2009, when the team was known as Force India, it had a partnership with Mercedes originally through an engine and gearbox supply arrangement, which has since expanded to include non-listed elements such as suspension. However, under Lawrence Stroll's ownership, the team is growing, with a brand new factory being built at its Silverstone headquarters in order to compete for titles. Key people from rival teams have also been recruited, notably Fallows, who arrived from Red Bull to head up the technical department. And he feels the team should be ready to minimize its reliance on Mercedes. I think we're pretty open-minded about that kind of thing. When asked if he wished to produce additional of the bought-in components, Fallows explained, "What this team has gained from its relationship with Mercedes has been immense, and as we move into the future and do things our own way, we're mindful that we have to do them at least as well and if not better than they do. We will evaluate what is the next thing that will help us become more competitive, but at the moment, I don't see any of the stuff we get from Mercedes is holding us back in any way." Could Mercedes find more power in Brixworth? Hamilton and Russell are hoping to uncover anything before the year 2026. If you want to be a P1 in Formula One news, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.